today.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
Hi guys. Who are you guys? Like, it's the first time coming here. Design lecture. You. Okay, good. Okay.
You guys new to the club or been?
Are you guys in GI or?
Yeah.
So Lab Initiative, everyone?
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, cool. Good. So if you don't know us, I'm Brian, and he's Calvin. Okay, so this is our contact. You can take it down whenever you want. And we're here doing design lecture every 2 weeks. So last 2 weeks we did Illustrator. So basically we finished Illustrator. We finished this basically telling what is it, what's the function of Illustrator, what's the importance of designing using Illustrator and everything. And if you guys you want to catch up, you want to learn how Illustrator, we have open hours every Monday, 6 to 8 at MCS 148, and I will write down the notes later. Okay? So today we're going to cover Photoshop. Okay. Any one of you guys have Photoshop in your computer? You have Photoshop? Photoshop? Okay. So one thing is the availability of Photoshop. It's it's a paid application, but computers in Mugar, actually every computer in Mugar have Photoshop. If you don't know, then you can actually look for it. They have Photoshop, they have Illustrator. So that's the best way to actually learn Photoshop that way. And if you guys have access to COM, actually, during the weekdays, you guys can go just COM building, go to the second floor. There are like hundreds of Macs over there. They're like have the latest application for design or whatever. Yeah, and then you can always go there. So I'm just gonna repeat. If you want Photoshop, you can go to COM building level 2 or Mugar. Yeah. And then today we're gonna cover Photoshop and let's start. Okay. So we're gonna start by basically going through, looking at the screen. You can just follow. We're gonna start with the new file.
Okay.
Yep. Today I'm gonna tell you about everything about Photoshop from the start. So when you make new file in Photoshop, you're gonna get this screen. Okay. Then I'm gonna tell you about what's the important about the pixels and the resolution in Photoshop. Because in Illustrator, it doesn't matter because you make design factor based. You zoom it out, you zoom it out, you zoom in, everything stays the same. But in Photoshop, it's pixel. So when you zoom it out and when you zoom in, the pixel will change and then you can get pixelated. So that's why if you have a picture and then you zoom out, you zoom in, it can get really pixelated. So the width and height is very important, and if you can pull up from the Safari, from the browser, there is a different sizes for iPhone. Okay, the latest iPhone 5 screen resolution is this. It's definitely readily available in the internet. You can look it up, iPhone 5 resolution. So whenever you draw a mock-up or a layout in iPhone, because JI we're making apps, this is very important. The iPhone 4 screen resolution is smaller because it's smaller. And then in Android, there are more choices because Android phones are not they're in every phone. They're in Samsung phone. Because there are a lot of screen resolutions. That's why you need to adapt into the different kind of resolutions. Yeah. So let's go back to Photoshop. And the resolution is usually 72 pixels per inch. So usually you have 3 options: 72, 150, or 300. Okay, 72 pixels per inch is very important for designing apps. Okay, so if you want to lay out in the screen, so in your iPhone or in your computer or whatever, do a mock-up with 72 pixels per inch. And if you actually want to print it physically on paper or on a billboard or something, you do it 300 because you need really sharpness in the image, sharpness in the icons and everything. So for mock-ups, 72 pixels per inch is good. It's good enough to see. It's good enough for visual. You cannot really see all the edges and stuff. And 72 is definitely the choice. So let's start making a new one. Yep. All right. So this is what you have when you start a new one. You have iPhone screen. So what do you use for Photoshop for is to make mockups. So if you go to clients, if you go to your respective organization, you need to you use Balsamic to mock up very very rough edges, and then you use Photoshop to make how the visual goes, how the app will actually look like. So you have the screen, and I'll explain to you some of the functions here. This is what we call the toolbar. Okay, this is the toolbox. This is your stationary box, basically what you can do, what you can use for Photoshop. And I'll go through some of it, and I think we'll go through. Let's start with the shape tool. Okay, we're gonna make shapes, and yeah, let's like draw a rectangle or something, or like ellipse tool,
Sure.
and then we'll try to burn. Okay, so if you draw, this is the drawing tool. So when you draw something, it appears there, and what you can do with it is, these are the editing tools for Photoshop. Okay, I'm gonna teach you these two important ones, which is the burn tool, dodge tool, and smudge tool. So if you actually hover, you can actually see the name. There are a lot of hotkeys. Let's start with the burn tool.
In here.
Yep, burn tool is here. So burn tool is just rasterize it. Yeah. So burn tool is basically to darken stuff. Okay, it's to like burn itself. It makes itself. So burn, when you want to like burn something like this, you cannot really see it here. But if you're editing a photo or editing a picture, you use this tool to darken and to smoothen stuff, to lighten stuff. I mean, yeah, if you.
Zoom. Let me see here.
Nah, I cannot really see it. But in the screen, if you can really see in the screen, you can adjust the exposure and everything. This basically to photo edit tool. This is not really like a drawing tool. It's to edit photos. So the difference between Illustrator and Photoshop is more to edit something, to compile something, to make something, to make a layout, rather to make individual stuff. Okay. Yeah. So the other tool is dodge tool, which is to lighten it. And yeah, I think we shouldn't. I think it's very hard to see for burn and dodge tool. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's not really function. Like it's not that important if you want to make mockups for apps. And I'll let you know the more important part. Yeah, and it's here. This is the layer window. Okay, Photoshop is more into layers. It's really very layers are very important in Photoshop, unlike Illustrator. So Photoshops are based on layers. Basically, the one on top is the layer on top it shows the hierarchy of the objects. So the top one should be above, and then if you double click it, it shows the layer style panel. So here's how you adjust the objects, how it looks like. So these are several options. They're like the bevel, the glow, the drop shadow, and everything. We can start with drop shadow. Yeah, drop shadow basically it creates shadows. You can adjust by clicking the thing, and you can adjust the opacity and the angles. Yep, this way. So every of this screen have its own details. So if you go drop shadow, and you can adjust the angle and the distance and the spread. This is definitely experimental. You can go to try it yourself. You can adjust, however the way you like until you are comfortable with it. Yeah. So if you want to go the size, the spread, the distance, basically how it goes away from the real object. The spread is how blurry it is, and the size is just the size of the shadow itself. And then, yeah, you can go one by one with everything. I think the one thing that I always use a lot is actually stroke. Yeah, stroke is basically creating outlines. So if you want to create borders, or if you want to create something with different borders, with different colors, you can always use stroke. You can click the stroke. Okay. Yeah. So you can change different colors or everything. And sometimes very useful. But yeah, because for me, I don't really like shadows. I don't really like, bevel and emboss, like 3D, more flat design. I think stroke is very useful. Yeah. Oh, if you guys have any questions, you can just raise up your hand. Yeah, don't be afraid. Yeah, I think that's all. That's it for, because layer style is very. There are a lot of options, and it's just based on your taste. It's based on what you want, based on what you like, or based on your own taste. So you can just really experiment with it. If you have Photoshop access, again, in Com Building or Mugar, you can just try each one by one. Because Photoshop and all these programs are basically experience. You just keep practicing, And if you don't, if you keep practicing, you'll keep more comfortable and you can design faster. Yep.
I just want to say, like, layer styles is going to be one of the most important things for creating like UI elements, because if you're going to style a button, you want to be able to have like a gradient in there where you can click gradient overlay, or you want a drop shadow or a stroke. So this is going to be a really fun tool to use when you're creating like the navigation or the buttons. We can show it later in practice as well, but definitely play around with these and maybe like know the context that you're designing for. If you're going to design for today, you can see that iOS 7 is very much into like flat design, so you don't want to go like too crazy with adding 3D effects, but you can definitely be tasteful about it, and you can do all of this.
Yeah, and on that note, are you guys familiar with the term UI and UX? Okay, I'm gonna recap. Basically, UI is user interface, and UX is user experience. Okay, so it's the letter UI and UX. It's always come together when you go to a design job, or like, you know, when you go to a designer will tell you, oh, the UI and the UX. So UI is user interface. User interface is how it looks. When you see the app and everything, the colors, the layout, everything, that's UI. Okay, so if you say the UI is good, means like the layout and the appearance itself is good. UX, on the other hand, is user experience. User experience is how the users are experiencing your app. It's how me, like, you know, if I open a Facebook app, I know where to go. I'm not confused on like where to go. Oh, this is the search button, this is something. If the UX is good, basically your app is functioning well. You're not confused about how it's the function of the app. Because sometimes apps can be really obnoxious, can really, like, you know, you don't know where to go, you don't know where to swipe. That's a bad UX. So if you as a designer, or if you're not a designer, you're designing something, the UI and the UX, both part is very important. Yeah? Okay. Next one should be.
Wait, Nate, I forgot to record the screen. Is that bad?
It's okay.
We pretty much like recorded the screen.
Yeah.
Make sure.
Okay. Alright,
Yeah,
now
that's
that we
fine.
talked about layers, we're going to talk about smart objects, which is a concept that's, I think it's just in Photoshop that you can use, or like the most common use of smart objects is in Photoshop. But basically what it is a way to bridge all the Adobe software. So if you make something in Illustrator using the vector tool, you can transfer that into Photoshop, and you can basically edit it in Photoshop, and it's really convenient. I'll show you how it's done. First I'll open up Illustrator.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're opening Illustrator, we're going to make some random shape, okay? And then we're going to show how we're going to copy things from Illustrator, and we're going to copy it to Photoshop, okay? So again, Illustrator, since 2 weeks ago, we say it's very good to draw icons. You know, the traffic signs, the icons on your app, logo, is very important for logo, because you can zoom in and you can zoom out at different sizes. So this is Adobe Illustrator, and then we're gonna put it into Photoshop where we can draw the mock-up, like the app screen. Yeah. It's taking a while. Do you guys have any questions or anything, any confusion? How many of you guys are experienced, like ever designed with Photoshop or Illustrator?
I did, yeah.
What do you design?
I just like added layers to a photo, and I cut it, for example, a person, and I put it next to another person, and
Yep. So Photoshop is more popular for photo editing too, right? It's like, you know, if you have a photo, you use Photoshop to edit, you know, to make it better, to put goals in it, or like, you know, it's a photo editing tool. But we're going to use Photoshop to more cater into app process, basically making mock-ups to show to the client, because the client needs to know what's the screen supposed to be like. So, yep, we're making a traffic light. Is it traffic light?
Yep.
Or Lego?
Okay, so I put all these shapes together, and I've made the black part here with the fill, and then these have a white fill. So I'm just going to copy everything. Command C is copy. Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
And then, yeah, you can extend it.
Okay, I'll explain.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you paste it, you get this option. If you paste something from Illustrator, you get this option: Smart Object, Pixels, Path, and Shape Layer. What we want to do is Smart Object, because if you paste with pixels, it's just stay like that, the way the pixels. And then if you make it big or if you make it small, it will be destroyed. It will be completely wrecked. So if you place a Smart Object, it will appear to be like that, and there's the name Vector Smart Object, so it's a smart object. Basically, if it's smart object, you can zoom in on. You can make it big, you can make it small. It's adjustable. The screen, the shape itself will adjust to the screen size. So that's the importance of smart object. We want to try to keep everything be a smart object, but if you want to adjust it further, like try if you enter. Or if you want to you make, use the dodge tool or something, or burn. Yeah. See, you cannot adjust smart object because the smart object is still the warning will appear. Smart object must be rasterized first before proceeding. So if you encounter this problem, what you should do is press OK, and then you right-click this thing to rasterize it.
Yeah, just
oh, you already rasterized it? Yeah, basically you right-click and rasterize layer. Rasterize means now I want to edit it in Photoshop. I don't need it in Illustrator anymore. I just want to edit it in Photoshop. Yep.
Okay, so smart objects are really helpful when you're using Illustrator and Photoshop hand in hand, especially if you're creating your own illustrations or icons. It can be really convenient to edit your vector objects straight from Photoshop. So after you paste it in, you can see here it says vector object in the layers panel. So if you double click that, you can just press OK, it'll open up the vector in a separate Illustrator file. And so you can go ahead and change around all your illustrations. So let's say I want this to have more of a gray background. I want to make this yellow and then green. This is the ugliest top layer. And then after you do this, you can just Command F, which is to save. And when you save that, it updates the layer in Photoshop. And one thing to note is that this stoplight right here is completely separate from this. After you copy and paste this vector into Photoshop, it kind of becomes its own file that you can edit in Illustrator. I don't know if that makes sense, but I can definitely explain it again. All you need to know is this right here is connected to this after you edit it. So that's really helpful because when I was making my website, I had illustrations that I wanted to change based on the backgrounds that I had. So I would just edit them through Photoshop using the smart object, and then I would just change them in here and save it, and it would update back here. It's really convenient. You might find that helpful if you're using icons as well.
Yeah, because if you make layouts more complicated stuff, more option, you put a lot of things. You don't want to go back, edit each one of them, and then copy it back to Photoshop. It will be very, very troublesome. That's why the smart object bridge between the two applications, and that's a really powerful tool.
Okay. And then we're going to talk about filters as well in Photoshop. First, we're going to put in an image.
So now we're moving on to this function called filters. This is not the filter that you have in Instagram. Okay, it's wow, handsome. Anyway, we're not
in the picture.
we're not doing Instagram filters here. Sorry. The filters function in Photoshop is much more powerful. Again, not like Instagram. The filter have much more option, and Calvin here will show you how he filter his face.
Okay, Photoshop comes with a lot of default filters that you can use, and if anyone has ever used it, you might be very familiar with what you can do. If you go up here to filter, they show you all these different options. There's blurs, and then there's stylize and renders, and they do a lot of different, sometimes crazy things. So you definitely have to know how much to use if you ever use them. They're mostly used for editing photos, but you might be able to use them for creating user interfaces. If you if you've seen blurred backgrounds, you can use filters to do that. So let's say you go up here to blur and you choose Gaussian blur. You can edit the amount of blur so no one needs to see me. So you can blur the image right here. And that could be really helpful if you've been familiar with iOS 7 design styles. They have a lot of blurred backgrounds, and then they have like elements on top of them. For example, like this. So filters are pretty cool, but some of them are a little bit crazy. For example, if you do like distort, some crazy stuff. And you just have to be tasteful about it, and you have to know like what context you're using the filters for, because then it might look a little bit ugly. That's basically an introduction into what filters can do.
Yeah, we will not like go through each filter because there are like tens of them. But if you have your own access to Photoshop, you definitely can try each one of them. You can always undo it. At least know what's the function, and then next time if you want to do something, you know, oh, you need to use this filter. The most used filter, I think, yeah, I know, based on my own knowledge, I use blur a lot. And blur doesn't really just as the Gaussian blur itself, it also can add a texture kind of thing. You know, like
Texture?
yeah, no, blur. Just use blur and then Gaussian blur.
Yeah, Gaussian blur.
And then we can go. Oh, never mind.
Wait, what?
The next time. Yeah. Never mind. So if you actually can use this tool a lot, this is a really functional tool. You can go internet and then just say Photoshop filters or how to do it. And there's a lot of videos. There's a lot. We can actually post some links, some useful links later. And then it can tell you like what each of the filter will do, and everything is like very functional. And they will teach you step by step of each of them. Yep.
Another thing we want to show you guys is masking. If you were here for the last Illustrator talk, we kind of introduced the idea of masking, which is basically you take a shape and then you put another like image on top of it, and you can contain that whole image within that shape. So I can demonstrate it really quickly. For example, we can just make like an avatar image. So first, I'll make a rounded circle, like this. And you always want to make sure it has a color in there, so it can be white or purple in this case. And then you put an image on top of that shape because you want it to fit inside that circle. So go ahead and click on this layer, and you click Create Clipping Mask, and it contains that image within the shape that was underneath it. This is going to be super helpful when you're creating your layouts because you might have avatars, or you need to fit icons within a certain shape. You can basically move it around like this, and you can see how it works. And that also puts the point across of layers, because you can see that like one is underneath, and it's fitting in the circle.
Yeah, so if you guys use Instagram, you know the profile picture is circle. You know, you have a choice to make a profile picture like square or circle. This is a way to show your, you know, if you design something, this is a way to make that. Because you don't want to like crop the picture into like circles. Because yeah, this is the easiest way. Take note that the layer needs to be on top. This is very important because if you do the other way around, it will be the other way around. The purple will be, yeah, the purple,
right.
yeah, you can try it. If you can.
Release clipping mask is what you use to make sure it goes away.
Yeah, just create clipping. Nothing happened. Okay. Yeah, because the shape is smaller than things. So it's just very important to know the hierarchy of the layers. Because in Photoshop this matters a lot. In Illustrator it doesn't matter that much, but in Photoshop you need to know the layering. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's also with colors, you can do some pretty cool things with them if you go. Okay, let's say you put this purple circle over this avatar. If you look up here, there's a bunch of these different options: normal, dissolve, darken, etc. And these are called color blends. And they basically allow you to kind of add some interesting effects to your images or to your different elements in the UI. So for example, if I click overlay, it completely changes the whole image, you know, to have this purple overlay, and it's kind of transparent. And it changes the color schemes and the hues. So that's a really interesting thing you can do. I use it a lot in my design projects. I don't know exactly like what context it might fit in with user interface, but maybe you might come across a project that you can use overlays in. Or you could make all the avatars in your apps have purple overlays just because it might be interesting. That's something neat to know about colors and what you can do. So I think with this introduction, we also want to make like a really basic app interface to kind of demonstrate some of the stuff you can do. But before we do that, do you guys have any questions at all, or anything you want to know more about that you might have seen somewhere else? Feel free to ask.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of like anything Photoshop related, or like have you guys heard Brush? Because I think Photoshop usually people start Photoshop with Brush because Brush is the funnest thing that you can do. Yeah, that is Brush. You can download Brush everywhere. There are like a lot of free brushes. You can. Yes, this is like the coolest thing in Photoshop when you start it. But I don't really use it a lot. But this is where things get really cool, because you can download everything. Like a lot of people making brushes. You can make your own brushes, and you can make a template, and then you can just stamp. It looks like just you're drawing something. We don't really encourage the use of brush, because brush is just it's not an object. Okay, if we want to make apps, we deal with objects. If you want to like put it into the coding, you need to make an object and then upload it to the code. But you can use brush for like probably backgrounds and stuff, but we don't want the brush as an object. Like I don't want the brush to be the button, because you cannot make it an image. You get what I mean? Yeah.
You can like edit the brush stroke. Like
yeah.
It's not like a vector.
So if something happened like this, I cannot.
Right.
Like if I don't want the top part, I cannot adjust it. Yeah. Yeah. If you guys have any question, just shout out, or you can go to open hours. Remember, we're always there.
This website right here, I'm going to show you guys, is called Patterns. I might have mentioned it earlier on in first semester if you guys were there for like the first design lecture. But this is super helpful for designing UI and UX, because there are all these different apps and their screenshots depending on what you want. So we chose login, so all these different apps are displayed in all their login screens. So we want to copy one of them. A really simple one like this one right here. Triple Agent is a really pretty app. So
yeah, all of these are real apps. This is a very it's a very good website to get inspiration from. Have you guys started making your apps, designing your apps? Yeah, so if you need to design the app and if you need inspiration, or like I want a login screen, but it looks like, I don't want to say shit, but it looks like something bad, okay, and I want to make it cool. So Patterns is definitely a good way to start. You can, because when you want to draw something, you get inspiration from something. And here Calvin gonna show you how to create this in like under 5 minutes, because it's very simple. Login screen, if you have actually like a vision, and if you know the tools in Photoshop, you definitely can make it really, really quick. So we're gonna start showing you how we make this, okay? And then you can see how the design process starts. Yeah.
The first thing I have here that Brian showed me, which is really convenient, is this Mac app called HOVT. It's not necessary that you guys have this, but for this case, it might help a lot. Basically, I can use command shortcuts to find like any color on my screen and then save it. So we want to make this background first. So I'll pick that color.
So you guys have Mac users. Okay, I'm sorry for non-Mac users, but this is the one thing that I got. But if you actually, I'm not sure they have a PC version for the app, but this app is very useful. HOVT, it's Hoft. So when you design something, you deal a lot with colors, and you don't want to like just roughly, I want this kind of color or something, and you want to get an exact color, and you get that hex key. So if you're not familiar with hex key, every color has a hex key, every color has a code, so that you can be very accurate with that. So what Hoft does is they take the color and now we want to make the background to the same color as what we want. So we can just.
So I'm gonna make a rectangle to make the background, just like that, and they immediately put yellow, which is fine. But we'll change it. So right here, I can edit my shape, and you can see this yellow block here, which means that I can change the color right here. So if I double click on this, it allows me to enter in custom colors and kind of do some crazy things and enter values. So if I look back up here, it's 4F28, 4F28, 4F, and then 4F.
4F.
So I just enter in the hex key right here. You can see the pound symbol to show that this is the hex value. If I click OK, it'll change it to that. So that's the first step. We have the background.
So if you want to change color, by the way, you don't be afraid. You can change color here. You can change color there.
Yeah.
You can change color there. Just you see a block with colors, you can change it that way. I don't know why they put so many.
Might be just convenient. Like
yeah.
if you have the shape selected, you can change it up at the top or the layer. Those are like two straightforward things. So the next thing we want to do is to have these 4 blocks in there. So let's find the color for this. And go to Photoshop. We still have the rectangle tool selected. So let's just draw a new rectangle like this. And I want to change the color of that. 448. Okay. And this is a convenient thing to do. If you remember from the Illustrator lecture, the selection tool up here, or the move tool, allows you to just select the layer and the shape and just move it around. That's basically all it does. So in this case, one of the shortcuts in Photoshop is to hold down the Alt key, and then you can see the mouse changes to this. And if you just click, drag a shape, and keep holding Alt and then let go, it duplicates the shape, which is really easy and convenient. And I use it so much when I'm designing. And so there's a new layer here. I'm going to change the color of that to fit the sign up button.
You can just do it first.
Okay. What's the last one? Okay. And so I just want to edit the shape so that it fills this little gap in between. So I can just move like this. Click check. So there we have 2 things, 2 boxes. Type, yep. So over here is, you see this T here? That's the text tool. Basically you can enter in, and you can type words and such.
Yeah, one thing that I haven't really explained is the top part. Okay, the top part is like the control panel. So every tools have their own control panel. So when you actually pick a tool, the top part changes, and that's how you adjust the tool. So in case for text tool, the font size, the display text, everything is up there, and then you can just type. You can change the font that way, and then there's definitely you can adjust for typeface. We're gonna cover it, I think, for design principle in the next few lectures. We're gonna tell you the importance of like lettering and how you adjust the letters. And yeah, you have like another tool over here to like adjust more to that. The kerning is, I shouldn't say that, but it's just the spacing between the letters. They have all these really weird jargons about typeface, which yeah,
we'll cover.
We'll cover.
The type tool might be a little bit confusing. For example, if you were to just drag this, it kind of distorts the text. So what you want to make sure you do is you double click the T over here so that you're editing just the text. It's no longer a shape, like it's just the text. And then up here, the cancel sign and the check mark. If you click check, that just means you're done editing the text and it becomes a shape. So then it does this. It might be a little bit confusing, but I think once you just mess up once, you'll understand what happens after that. That's basically how it's like trial and error sometimes for these things. So I have Discover New Adventures here. So basically have the format down, and it's going to be straightforward to just drag and drop shapes and copy the rest.
Yeah, and for the menus and stuff, for the Facebook sign or something, you can definitely use the text, or actually for Facebook, you can use it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Let's do the lasso tool for Facebook.
Okay.
So we're gonna take Facebook logo from somewhere else.
I don't know if this is gonna work with the lasso tool.
No, let's just open from browser. Different browser.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're gonna look for Facebook logo because Facebook F is very particular. They're actually, that's not really a font, and you gotta get the. So if you want to get the F, the symbol, okay, the shape. So just get probably the black one or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Take anything.
Okay, so many options.
No, just pick one.
Just pick one?
Yeah.
I don't like the gradients that they
Okay.
end up.
No, you do this. You do the magic wand thing and take it.
Okay, so.
Okay, so we get this very ugly logo of Facebook, and then we save it, and then we'll put it in Photoshop.
And to put an image in Photoshop, you go up to File and then Place. And that allows you to choose any file in your computer. So we'll pick that.
Okay, now we don't want the ugly black thing. Okay, I'm sorry. We don't want the ugly gradient thing. And then we just want the F, right? And then how we do that is we want to select just the F. Another tool what we can use is the magic wand. Magic? Is magic wand there?
Yes.
Yes, the magic wand, okay? According to the name, it has magic. So you just click the F. The F, not the flag.
Oh, that,
Just
yeah.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it sort of accurately selects the F symbol, but if you get like higher resolution picture, it definitely gets the F correctly, and then you can just copy and paste it, and you just get the new. You can copy, and then when you paste it, it comes up with a new layer, and there you get the F. Okay, so Magic Wand is really useful, but sometimes because the screen the picture that you get from the internet is not in high resolution, it can be slightly distorted, but I suggest you get the magnetic lasso tool. Lasso tool is the rope icon right there. And then there are three options, the freehand, lasso freehand, and then the magnetic. I always use the magnetic one, usually, polygonal and magnetic. So magnetic is very useful when you actually want to copy a shape. And then it sort of magnetically trace along the outline or something. And usually you need that to get this so that you get the accurate shape. But for simpler use, you need to use the magic one. I think that's the simplest way to do it. Yeah, so copy and paste, you get the same thing.
So once I pasted, it made a new layer for that selected shape.
And then you can resize it into fitting the blue part according to the example. Yeah.
And just as a reminder, these tools up here are part of your selection tools. So the lasso tool allows you to select a certain shape. So that's why it's up here in this section, in the top left. There are a lot of resources online too to help you achieve that even quicker. So for example, over here I have a file called ntypo, and that's an icon set that was created by a designer, and he just uploaded it to the internet for everyone to use. So you can download this icon set, and once you open up in Photoshop, it's pretty straightforward to use. A trick that you can use is to right click on whatever shape you want, and it finds that particular shape in all the layers. So this one is called database, and that basically just selects the icon, and I think you can just copy and then paste.
No, you drag it.
You drag it to the tab of your iPhone thing, and then you have an icon just like that.
See, it was small, right? The icon was small before, and then now you resize it, but the resolution stays the same. This doesn't pixelate it. It's because it was a smart object. If you rasterize it, if you try rasterizing Facebook, yeah, rasterize. Yeah, so look at this. This one stays okay, but if you go to the icon set again, and rasterize the Facebook layer, just right click it, rasterize it. Okay, now you copy and paste it to the drag it the same way, and you can see the difference. See? So rasterize it if you are already certain that you are going to use that size. But if you are uncertain, you want to I need it bigger or need it smaller. See, you don't want to rasterize it too soon. Yeah. So that's the difference between smart object and not. If your smart object is this little thing, and then you're you know that you can resize it the way you want.
And just the last thing is another great resource. It's called the company is called TM Lax. It's up here, TM Lax. We can send that out to you guys. But basically, they provided this entire iOS 7 style sheet, pretty much, with all these different features and UI elements that you would find on your phone. And you can go ahead and use these to mock up your apps or to actually use them as part of your design. For example, I went to a hackathon and I was making an iOS app and I took these like bars and navigation bars and then just changed the colors around, added a gradient, and then it became like its own thing. So it definitely sped up the process like so much. It's free to use, so I definitely encourage you guys to use that. It's pretty much all we have though for the Photoshop talk.
Yeah, for the template, sometimes you don't really want to recreate the whole thing. Like, for your iPhone, you have the top bar. You don't want to like painfully recreate the whole thing. So that's why these nice guys make this available free on the internet. You can just look for iPhone 5 templates or whatever. There's huge of that. And then, you don't want to waste time to find the right font or whatever. They have everything. And basically, what's your focus is the content of the app. Not like the nitty gritty, like the top bar or the back button or something, but the basic function of the app. And yeah, that's sort of this is basically the introduction to Photoshop. This is also intermediate. We give you the tools that you get, and it's up to you to explore more. It's up to you to try all the filters, try to all the effects and everything. Photoshop is a powerful tool, as you ever heard. People use Photoshop in a lot of things, and definitely it's for your own exploration. We can go again to comp building, and we're gonna re-emphasize. It's such a useful place to actually use this. And yeah, we always have office hours on Monday. Right here. Monday, 6 to 8 p.m. not morning, at MCS 148. Yeah, MCS 148 is the building behind Warren. Yeah, behind Warren. And that's over there you can go MCS 148. We're always there. You go there, you ask us questions. We actually help you if you can bring your computer or whatever. Or we can show it with our computer, our Sunny computer. And then, yeah, do you guys have any questions? And yeah, if you have any questions, you can stay back if you're more shy. And then you can always go to the office hours. And these are contacts. You can shoot us email. Yeah, thank you so much for staying Sunday. Thank you.